For a special report from ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Interrupting our programming tonight to hear from former Illinois Governor Rob Blagojevich hours after President Trump pardoned him.
Blagojevich was convicted of trying to sell then President Barack Obama's old Senate seat for political favors, among other corruption charges. Let's go live to Ravenswood in the manor where his home is. Let's listen in.
Found an everlasting gratitude to President Trump for what he's done today, for the full presidential pardon. I think about my relationship with President Trump, and it's really, well, he's always doing things for me, and he never asked me to do anything for him. I had a chance to be on his television show, and then he ended what was a long, long, hard nightmare. After 2,896 days in prison, nearly 8 years, President Trump pulled me out of there, and now he did this. And all I can tell you is that President Trump is a man who, when he sees things that are wrong, he rights them and puts an end to them. And Patty and I and Amy and Annie will always be grateful to President Trump and never, ever forget his kindness to us. A long time ago when I was here in this house and Patty and I and our babies were asleep, 6 o'clock in the morning, and we got a phone call, and I thought it was a practical joke by my friend State Senator Jimmy DeLeo telling me that he had a warrant for my arrest. It wasn't him, it was the FBI, and that was the beginning of what was and has been a long, hard nightmare for my family and for me. All through this long, hard process, 2 trials, 8 years in prison, I never ever wavered in my determination to prove to the people of Illinois and anybody else who's listening that I broke no laws, crossed no lines, never took a penny. It was all politics, routine political conversations that were begun by then President-elect Obama, who sent an emissary to me to talk about making what this appellate court called a routine political deal when they reversed the so-called sale of the Senate seat. They were fake charges, and the big lie was told by the prosecutor and his office that did to me and my family what they did. But it's over. President Trump saw what happened, and how interesting it is that when someone goes through something like we went through, and he's gone through what he's gone through, it creates a certain understanding between people who sort of understand that something isn't right and something is wrong. Terrible thing that they did to me, a Democrat governor. Even worse, what they did to a Republican president, President Trump. And his resilience, his strength, his fortitude, his unwillingness to give in is an inspiration and an example of the kind of leader that he is. I could never give in. I want to say to the people of Illinois 2 things. Number 1, I never raised your taxes. And number 2, I didn't do it. It was all political talk. And so I wouldn't give in because I love my wife, I love my daughters. I'll always honor and revere the memory I have of my late parents and the values they taught me. And I could never give in and sell the people of Illinois out and let these corrupt prosecutors criminalize things that are routine and legal in politics and take you away from me. To all of the Democrats out there who voted for me twice in elections, Democratic voters who voted for me in 2 elections as governor, I want to thank you. For all of those Republicans out there who voted against me in those 2 elections, I want to particularly thank you for the 2nd election. Had there been more of you in that one, I wouldn't have gone where I ended up going. But most importantly, I want to talk a little bit just about what's, I believe, the greatest constitutional crisis in American history since the Civil War. And that is this weaponization of prosecutors for political purposes, rigged courts, a broken justice system that is historically been racist in America, now has become weaponized in America. And I also want to say how lawfare and the misuse of the power of prosecutors in the courts must never be part of the political process. Abraham Lincoln said it right when he talked about government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And that's what's at stake here. And so moving forward, as we learn from the past, without bitterness, always remembering, I want to simply say that I'm determined to do whatever I can as a private citizen, volunteer my time and efforts to do the best I could to fight for justice and to do what I think is right. I'm going to wrap it up and introduce my lawyer, Leonard Goodman, here in 1 second, but I would like to share a quick little story about my early days in prison, way back in 2012, 2013, 2014, when they put me in a prison behind a barbed wire fence. The inmates call it the razor wire. This is fresh in my mind because I'm writing a book about that experience, and I can't help but forget the things that, some of the experiences I went through. And I remember one of my first visits to see Patty and our kids, and our little Annie was still only 8 years old. And before going in to see my family, there's a fee you have to pay, a price you have to pay before you can see your family, and it's being searched. Full body cavity strip search going in, a full body cavity strip search going out. And while I was doing one of those undignified things, a kind-hearted correctional officer, one of the prison guards, a man who was raised in the black churches and had a deep, abiding faith in the Christian faith, told me a story. He advised me, go read Genesis chapter 38 to 50, the story of Joseph. And at the end of that story, a man who was innocent was condemned to prison, but God favored him and pulled him out. At the end of that story, Joseph says to those who persecuted him and had something to do with what happened to him, his brothers who had sold him out, he said, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. I truly believe that as bad as this has been, I can't begin to tell you how blessed and fortunate I've always felt to be able to walk through life with Patty. It's been a most gracious thing. She defied the odds. 2 days after I was arrested, the Vegas odds makers had it 9-1 that she was going to leave. She didn't leave, she stayed. After 8 years of incarceration, when better than 90% of women, whether they're wives or significant others, and a man's in prison for more than 4 years, they don't stick around. So I've been blessed and fortunate to have fallen in love with and walked through life with my loving wife and our daughters. It was faith, hope, and love that brought us home. And so grateful to the people who've been supportive of us, who've been so kind with their words of encouragement through all those hard years. And again, above all, one more time, let me tell you from the bottom of my heart how deep my appreciation and gratitude is for President Trump. I believe President Trump is well on his way to being the most consequential president in American history since Franklin Roosevelt. He is going to change things and make things better, and among the things he's going to change, I believe, he's going to save our democracy by putting a stop to weaponized prosecutions for political purposes and lawfare. Thank you. Leonard?
Rod, real quick, do you want the ambassadorship to Serbia? Can you comment on that? Are you in line for that position?
No comment.
Are you going to run for public office now that you're pardoned?
She's here. No comment. Gracias, senor. No culpable. Look, you're asking me political questions about whether or not I want to run for public office. I haven't thought about that. I'm so grateful to what President Trump did for me and for my family. Patty's made it abundantly clear that I ever do that again. I'm quoting you. She said, I'll be doing that with my second wife. I know. I sure don't want to lose her.
Do you think Speaker Madigan is a victim of the weaponization of prosecutors?
I'm not going to comment on that, and I haven't been following that. Leonard, come and talk, please. Then I'll answer more questions. Yes.
I met Rod in 2011. I've been fighting for his freedom ever since, and this is a happy day. And I just want to say there's not many people that come through the federal system and can actually come out the other side with their house, with their family intact. It says a lot about the strength of this man and this amazing wife, Patty that he has. And I just also want to say this is a case that was built on a political deal that was never a crime. He never should have done a day. And I also thank President Trump for doing the right thing. This is what pardon power is supposed to be for, to correct an injustice. Thank you all for the support, and it's been my honor to get to know these people.
Leonard, what's the communication been like with the White House in recent days? Can you comment on it?
I have no comment on that.
Can I say something about Leonard? He's not only a good man, he's a great lawyer. And it's been a real pleasure and an honor having him represent us and the appeal that he wrote. I would spend hours in prison rereading his appeal, something like 90-something pages. It was very meticulous. He's a great writer, good short sentences. But most of all, he's just a good effing guy. And what a great experience it's been with Leonard. Even though every step of the way, we lost every step of the way in that second rigged, corrupt trial run by a judge who was a political hack.
How did you hear? Did Trump call you directly?
You have to talk to Rod.
No, Rod. How did you find out? Did Trump call you directly?
And I'm going to try to call President Trump myself and personally thank him. But Patty and I were spending a quiet evening at home 2 Saturdays ago, and the phone rang, and someone that I know through the Trump campaign, it was his call, and he was calling, and I answered it. And really a good guy, very effective. And I said, "Hey, Sergio, how you doing? Congratulations on your big position." And he said, hold on a minute, Gov. An old friend would like to say hi to you. And then I got on the phone, and it was President Trump. And he told me that this is what he was going to do. And so we've known it for a couple of weeks. And again, what can I say? He's just a great effing guy.
What is your strongest feeling right now? Is it satisfaction? Is it relief? Or is it anxiety?
No anxiety after what we've been through. You know, one benefit of that experience is that nobody can hurt you anymore after they do that to you. And you face that, and you have to endure that. And, you know, people ask me sometimes, well, what do you think is your greatest accomplishment in life? Is it being governor? And my answer is no, not even close. My greatest accomplishment is falling in love with Patty and having our children and standing up to these corrupt prosecutors, never giving in. Never ever giving in to the threats, the extortion, the shakedown, and the offers of leniency. If I'd be willing to say what they want me to say, I wouldn't do it. And I wouldn't do it because, as I said, my children, my wife, my late parents, me, and the people of Illinois. And your right to vote for me or against me. I was defending the right of all of the people out there who want to vote against me because it's their decision. The right of the people to choose their leaders in elections free and fair and not have them taken from us or interfered with by weaponized prosecutors who've turned themselves into political hitmen.
Do you regret the wheeling and dealing conversations, though, that got you in trouble at all?
Not at all. That's good government. The first Mayor Daley used to say good politics is good government is good politics. And Abraham Lincoln was our greatest president. Maybe Trump will surpass him. But Abraham Lincoln was our greatest president because he was a master at politics, and he was able to govern because of his political skills. And the slaves would not have been freed had it not been for Lincoln's great skill at politics. The 13th Amendment would have never passed had not Lincoln engaged in wheeling and dealing to make it happen so that he can get those senators to support the 13th Amendment. So no, not at all. What I was doing was trying to do right by the people. And by the way, 98% of those FBI tapes that talk about all the potential deals we talked about, including the ones leading up to my arrest, that prove Patrick Fitzgerald is an effing liar when he said he was stopping a crime spree before it happened. On the night before, and the days before, you ought to hear those tapes and what I was about to do and what he stopped. So maybe now we can get some of those tapes played, and you see that this prosecutor Shar, the lead prosecutor in court, how he directly lied to the jury when I was testifying about what was on those tapes, and they wouldn't let me play the tapes in court to corroborate what I was saying. And he goes and tells the jury, go back in the jury room and listen to how many times he talks about the Madigan deal, which would have provided health care for people, public works, 500,000 jobs with a big capital project, public works bill, and a written promise not to raise taxes on the people. That was the deal. And Rahm Emanuel, the day before, I was told by my chief of staff, agreed to be the go-between. And then the next morning, they come here at 6 o'clock in the morning with SWAT teams around my house and a hostage negotiator to arrest the sitting governor of the fifth largest state.
Was
so no.
Patrick Fitzgerald protecting Barack Obama?
I don't know, but Barack Obama's 302s are still being covered up.
Governor, is it unconstitutional for the state to bar you from running for office now that your convictions have been wiped away?
I believe it was always unconstitutional.
Will you challenge again? I know you lost that case in court.
I know, but look who's here. I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. This isn't about me running for office again, honestly. It is, however, a step towards me trying to serve my country some more and doing what I think is right for our country.
If you're not planning to run for office again and you won't comment on the potential ambassadorship, what is next for you and for Patty?
Well, I think more of what I've been doing. I'm writing a book about the experience. It's a story that starts with one president, President Obama, ends with another, President Trump, and most of the story is about a governor in prison with Crips and Bloods and gangster disciples and Sinaloa cartel drug dealers who look up to El Chapo, the drug lord, like my two daughters look up to Taylor Swift. There were murders in that prison they put me in for the first 2.5 years. I went from a 50,000 square foot governor's mansion to a 6 foot by 8 foot prison cell. I reached and searched for God and found him. I've learned that in the sadness of life, that's something we often do, is to search for God, and I found him. And it was my Christian faith that gave me the strength I needed to endure, to persevere, to overcome, and my love for my family. It really was faith, hope, and love. St. Paul, first letter of Corinthians, chapter 13. So I'm writing that book, and I do some business and some consulting work and things of that sort, and I'll keep doing that. And I'll be as helpful as I possibly can be to President Trump and his efforts to save our democracy and make our country better.
Consulting work for who specifically?
Well, I mean, I've got private clients. I don't think they'd appreciate me. You trying to get me fired or something?
What did you do on those 2 trips to Serbia?
Well, I met with President Vucic. My father came from Serbia.
Who paid for the trip?
My father came from Serbia, and I was invited to go there and meet with him and and do some business.
What happens with your pension?
You know, Patty thinks about those things. I never ever did, and I still don't. They took it away. I know that. They took my law license away, the sons of bitches. And I shouldn't say that, but it was wrong. I deserve my law license for standing up for the rule of law. And my pension, you know, I never really thought much about that. I still consider myself young, even though the number of years I've lived belie that. But, you know, I don't know. I haven't thought about that. Did you want to address that, honey? You don't want to, do you?
No.
Huh?
No.
Well, you know, she kept us in our home, and she built her little business as a single mom all by herself. I miss my daughters growing up because of what they did, but she raised our two little girls beautifully. They're grown, and they both do great in school. They take after their mother, and our older daughter is doing great, and our little one's doing great, and we're so blessed and grateful. And I really believe that what happened, it was for a purpose, something much larger than us.
What do you tell to all the innocent people that are in prison that they don't have the lucky that you have?
Yeah, sí, señor. I think it's very important for us to build on President Trump's first step and the First Step Act that he was able to pass, criminal justice reform. It was Donald Trump who did that, not a Democratic president. Donald Trump, who began the process of undoing the 1994 crime bill that Joe Biden sponsored and Bill Clinton signed. I'd like to see us take a second step. I learned a lot of hard lessons from that experience I was in. It just reaffirmed what I really knew but never really knew deeply, and that is that the criminal justice system is a racist system, and it disproportionately discriminates against people of color, particularly black people. And first-time nonviolent drug offenders, first time, given these long sentences, almost impossible for them to have a chance at a second chance. President Trump began that process, a significant step with the First Step Act, that led to the freedom for a lot of people. I think there's more to be done, a lot more to be done. And I do think that part of that criminal justice reform needs to include holding prosecutors who abuse their power accountable for what they've done. And I think it's really important moving forward that we do something like that. If I'm right, and I am right, if you can use an unlawful standard, as they did, to get convictions for things that are legal, that the Supreme Court says is a First Amendment protected right, if they can get away doing that, there's no difference between doing that and a dirty cop who plants a murder weapon to frame an innocent man. And so those cops who do that go to jail. How is it these prosecutors are immune from that sort of thing?
It was also announced today that Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, the Justice Department's not going to prosecute him any longer. Do you see any parallels between your case and his case?
I see. No, man, you're wrong. I see a parallel in that he upset some powerful people, political people, and all of a sudden he became a target of something. And apparently they're talking about upgrades on a flight to Turkey or something. I don't know a lot about the details. I don't even have that. But I'm glad to hear that they're not going to prosecute him, because it all sounded like a bunch of baloney to me.
Are you glad that Charles Kushner got a pardon when he did, for what he did? Charles Kushner was accused of hiring a hooker to bait his brother-in-law.
Any other questions?
Thank you, everybody.
Yes. Yes, very much. I believe that's part of my destiny, and I believe I must do it. I do believe that. I believe I've been blessed with a miracle. With President Trump has been God's instrument. I believe that deeply, and I believe it's my calling. I very much do, and I hope to be able to work with the current administration in that direction. And I believe, look, I know him enough. I don't know him that well, but I know him enough to know when he sees something wrong, he doesn't hesitate. This man, President Trump, acts to undo wrongdoings. And so a lot of it has to do with getting information to the people who have the power to make the decisions. I think I can be helpful that way, and do more than that, but certainly that.
As a Serbian, do you support President Trump standing up against Vladimir Putin in Ukraine?
Is that the same guy?
It's the same guy.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah. I'm not going into foreign affairs. Are you crazy?
You're not going to be ambassador to Serbia.
Anybody? Leonard, anything you want to say? Yes. Anyway, thank you so much. It's nice to see you guys again.
Let's go.
He's never ever asked me for anything, by the way. I should point that out. Never ever. Yeah.
What does he want?
Governor Rod Blagojevich speaking for about 20 minutes outside his home in Ravenswood Manor after he was pardoned by President Trump late today. He spent 8 years of a 14-year prison sentence. He was commuted. His sentence was commuted back in February of 2020, and now he's been pardoned, which removes the guilt and civil disabilities regarding his sentence.
One thing we saw when he went on trial were images like this, outside his house, holding news conferences, stopping and talking to people, answering a lot of questions. It seems like Rob Blagojevich is back in his comfort zone as he's talking about a lot of serious questions, including one which was, are you going to run for public office?
Right, he said no comment.
He looked at his wife and he said, she's here.
You know what she said, though.
Yeah,
if
no
you
comment.
ran for office, who you would be with.
Yeah.
If
I mean, that relationship was a part of that trial and a part of who Rob Blagojevich was. Patty became the spokeswoman for many things that her husband could not say while he was incarcerated.
He also was asked the question, would he become the ambassador to Serbia? He also said no comment. But what I found was interesting is that he said President Trump called him 2 weeks ago. He's only been in office since January 20th. And he called him 2 weeks ago to tell him what was possibly about to happen, and then it happened today. The former governor saying that two things while he was in office: he didn't raise taxes, and he didn't do it.
Yeah, he's always alleged his innocence, or maintained his innocence. As he heads back inside here, look at the flash bulbs. Rob Blagojevich familiar to that, and quite frankly, those of us who covered him over many, many years know he likes that. He likes to talk to the media. He likes to be accessible to them. Serbia came up many times because he went there. He is not saying he was clearly avoiding those questions, but all indications are that would likely be next for him, even though he made a point of saying the president didn't ask him for anything in return.
Right. So one thing he also talked about, the weaponization of the criminal justice system as well as prosecutors. So he said he's working on a book. So we're going to hear more about his life in prison and life after prison, apparently. And he introduced his lawyer, he said, who's been very loyal to him and very helpful in this process. So
yeah, well, okay, we've got a lot of reaction we want to get for you because we're back on the air here in about 40 minutes or so. Well, you heard Eric Hong asking some important questions there. He'll have the latest, and we'll be back for a full roundup of the news and the weather we're watching, because there's a storm coming too.
Right, on ABC 7 at 10 o'clock. We'll see you then. Thanks for joining us in the meantime.
This has been an ABC 7 Eyewitness News special report.